The Christmas Gifts That Destroyed My Marriage. Hey everyone, welcome back to Reddit Bit. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you gave your toxic in-laws the Christmas gifts they truly deserve? Meet Rebecca, a woman who spent years trying to win over her husband's family, only to be constantly rejected, belittled, and manipulated at every turn. When they exclude her from Christmas celebrations and her husband chooses them over her, she decides to give them gifts they'll never forget, and it becomes the final nail in her marriage's coffin. But here's the twist that makes this story truly incredible. The prenuptial agreement that was meant to protect her wealthy husband from the gold digger they thought she was. It ends up protecting her instead when their financial situation dramatically reverses. Let's dive in.
I never thought I'd be divorced at 31. I definitely never thought I'd be the one to blow up my own marriage with a set of deliberately terrible Christmas gifts. But here we are. My name is Rebecca Taylor, and 3 years ago, I was living what seemed like a perfect life in Sydney, Australia. I had a successful career in digital marketing, a beautiful apartment in Surrey Hills, and I just married Liam Edwards, the love of my life. We met at a tech conference where I was representing my agency. Liam was presenting his new startup, an innovative platform that helped small businesses compete with larger corporations. He was brilliant, charming, and had these piercing blue eyes that seemed to look right through you. When he approached me after my presentation on digital marketing strategies, I felt an immediate connection. "Your analysis of consumer behavior was spot on," he said, handing me his business card. "I'd love to get your thoughts on my company's marketing approach sometime." That sometime turned into coffee the next day, dinner the following week, and within 6 months, we were inseparable. Liam was everything I'd been looking for: smart, ambitious, and genuinely kind. When he proposed during a sunset picnic at Bondi Beach, I didn't hesitate to say yes. Our wedding was a small but elegant affair at a vineyard in the Hunter Valley. My parents, who still lived in my hometown of Melbourne, were thrilled. They adored Liam from the moment they met him. His parents, however, were a different story entirely. The first time I met Richard and Diana Edwards was at an upscale restaurant in Double Bay. They arrived 15 minutes late, barely apologized, and immediately started interrogating me about my family background, education, and career prospects. "Marketing, is it?" Diana said, her voice dripping with condescension. "How creative. And your parents are teachers in Melbourne? How quaint." Richard was equally unimpressed. "Liam tells us you work for that digital agency. Interesting choice. Not much stability in that industry, is there?" Throughout dinner, they made it clear that I wasn't what they had envisioned for their son. They were old money from Sydney's North Shore. Richard was a prominent surgeon, Diana was on the board of several prestigious charities, and Liam's sister, Vanessa, was a successful corporate lawyer married to a property developer. "Don't worry about them," Liam whispered as we left the restaurant. "They're just protective. They'll warm up to you once they get to know you." But they never did. In fact, things only got worse after we announced our engagement. Diana immediately took control of the wedding planning, dismissing my ideas as too simple or inappropriate. Richard pulled Liam aside one evening to suggest a prenuptial agreement. "It's just a precaution," Liam explained when he brought it up. "Dad thinks it's important to protect the family assets, especially with my company potentially taking off." I was hurt but tried to be understanding. "If it makes your parents feel better, fine. I'm not marrying you for your money, Liam." The prenup was heavily skewed in Liam's favor. It stated that his business would remain solely his property, along with any assets derived from it. We would maintain separate bank accounts, and neither party would be eligible for alimony. At the time, it seemed inconsequential. I loved Liam and couldn't imagine our marriage ending. After the wedding, I made a genuine effort to bond with the Edwards family. I attended every family function, remembered birthdays and anniversaries, and always brought thoughtful gifts. Nothing seemed to work. For Diana's birthday, I decided to make a traditional Australian pavlova, a dessert I knew she loved. I spent hours perfecting the meringue, arranging fresh berries, and making sure it looked absolutely perfect. When we arrived at their home in Mossman, I proudly presented the pavlova to Diana in the kitchen. "I made your favorite, Diana. I hope you like it." She took the plate from me, looked at it for a moment, then walked straight to the garbage bin and dumped it in. "Oh, I'm so sorry," she said with a thin smile. "I'm watching my sugar intake these days. Doctor's orders." I stood there, stunned into silence as she handed me back the empty plate. When I told Liam what happened later that night, he confronted his mother. Suddenly, her story changed. "Oh, Liam, there's been a misunderstanding," Diana said, her eyes welling up with perfectly timed tears. "I was taking the plate, but I didn't get a good grip. Rebecca let go too quickly, and it fell on the floor. Of course I had to throw it away." Vanessa backed her up. "I saw the whole thing, Liam. It was just an accident." Liam looked relieved. "See, Beck? Just a misunderstanding. But I knew what I saw. And that was the moment I realized I was fighting a battle I couldn't win." For the first 2 years, our marriage was good despite the in-law situation. Liam's business was growing rapidly. We moved into a beautiful terrace house in Paddington, and I was thriving in my role as a marketing director. We talked about starting a family soon. Then March 2020 happened. COVID hit Australia, and everything changed overnight. At first, we thought Liam's business would weather the storm, maybe even grow, since many companies were accelerating their digital transformation. But as lockdowns dragged on and businesses slashed budgets, clients began dropping like flies. By June, revenue had plummeted by 70%. "We just need to hold on," Liam insisted, pumping more of our savings into the company. "Things will turn around." I supported him completely. We cut back on expenses, I took on freelance projects on top of my full-time job, and we dipped into my savings too. By December 2020, we had burned through nearly $200,000 of our combined savings, and the company was still hemorrhaging money. "Liam, we need to talk about closing the business," I said one night after he spent hours staring at dismal financial reports. "We can't keep going like this." "I can't just give up," he snapped. "This company is everything I've built. My parents invested in it too." And there it was. His parents had been early investors, and the thought of telling them he had failed was unbearable to him. But by February 2021, there was no choice left. Liam finally agreed to shut down operations. The day he told his parents, Diana called me directly for the first time ever. "I hope you're supporting him properly through this," she said, her voice icy. He wouldn't have given up if he had the right encouragement at home. I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. Liam fell into a deep depression after closing the business. He barely left our bedroom, let alone the house. After 3 months of this, he came to me with an idea. "I think we should move to Mossman," he said, referring to the suburb where his parents lived. "Being closer to family would help me right now. Plus, we could save on rent." Every instinct told me this was a terrible idea, but Liam looked so broken, so desperate. I agreed. We found a small apartment just 10 minutes from his parents. The rent was steep, but Richard and Diana insisted on handling the lease. "We'll take care of everything," Diana said. "You two just focus on getting back on your feet." We would pay them each month, and they would pay the landlord. It seemed like a generous offer at the time. After the move, our roles completely reversed. I became the primary breadwinner, commuting 45 minutes each way to the city. Liam took a part-time job at a local electronics store, working just 12 hours a week while networking and exploring new business ideas. In reality, he spent most days at his parents' house, where Diana cooked his favorite meals and Richard assured him that his next venture would be even bigger. "I'm thinking about a new platform for virtual networking," he told me excitedly one evening. "Dad thinks it could be huge." "That sounds interesting," I said carefully. "But maybe you should focus on finding more stable work first? Our savings are almost gone." His face fell. "You don't believe in me anymore, do you?" "That's not fair, Liam. I've supported you through everything. I just think we need to be practical right now." But practical wasn't what Liam wanted to hear. He wanted blind faith, unwavering support, the kind his parents gave him, where every idea was brilliant and failure was never his fault. Despite everything, I still tried with his family. Every Sunday dinner, Every birthday, every holiday, I showed up with a smile and expensive gifts that I could barely afford on my salary alone. For Christmas 2021, I went all out. For Richard, I found a rare first edition book about Australian architecture that cost nearly $300. For Diana, I bought a designer silk scarf in her favorite shade of blue, $250. For Vanessa, I selected an exclusive skincare set from that high-end brand she was always talking about, $200. For her husband Mark, I got premium tickets to a cricket match, $350. I was wrapping these gifts in early December when Liam came home from his parents' house looking uncomfortable. So, about Christmas Eve, he started not meeting my eyes. There's been a slight change of plans. What kind of change? I asked, setting down the wrapping paper. Mom thinks it might be better if it's just family this year. For dinner and Christmas morning. I stared at him, uncomprehending. I'm your wife, Liam. I am family. He shifted awkwardly. She says the vibe hasn't been the same lately. That you seem unhappy around them. Of course I'm unhappy. They've never accepted me, and now they're literally uninviting me from Christmas. Liam looked pained. It's just one dinner and breakfast. We can do our own thing later on Christmas Day. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. So you're still going? Without me. They're my parents, Beck. What do you expect me to do? In that moment, something inside me broke. 3 years of trying to be accepted, of making excuses for their behavior, of watching my husband choose them over me again and again, it all came crashing down. I expect you to stand up for your wife, I said quietly. I expect you to tell them that we're a package deal. That's what I expect you to do. But I knew he wouldn't. And when he looked away, unable to meet my eyes, I knew our marriage was over. I spent that night crying, then planning. The next morning, I got up early and drove to the shopping center. I returned every single expensive gift I had bought for the Edwards family, getting back nearly $1,100 in refunds. Then I went on a different kind of shopping spree. For Richard, I bought a pair of novelty socks with "World's Okayest Dad" printed on them from the bargain bin at Kmart, $4.99. For Diana, I purchased the cheapest, most generic bottle of shampoo I could find at the grocery store, the kind that smells like artificial flowers and probably damages your hair, $2.49. For Vanessa, I selected the most offensive perfume from the dollar store, something that smelled like a combination of cheap candy and industrial cleaner, $1. For Mark and his precious Chihuahua, Coco, I bought an enormous rawhide bone meant for a Great Dane, completely useless for their tiny dog, $15.99. I wrapped each gift beautifully with expensive paper, elaborate bows, and heartfelt cards. The contrast between the packaging and the contents gave me a petty satisfaction I'm not proud of, but also don't regret. The remaining money, almost $1,075, went straight into a separate bank account that Liam didn't know about. I had a feeling I'd need it soon. On Christmas Eve, Liam dressed up and prepared to leave for his parents' house. Are you sure you don't want to come for dessert later? Mom said that would be fine, he offered, as if that was some great compromise. I'm sure, I said coldly. Don't forget to take the gifts. He looked relieved that I wasn't fighting anymore and grabbed the beautifully wrapped packages. I'll be back tomorrow afternoon, and we can have our own Christmas, he promised, kissing my cheek before leaving. I spent Christmas Eve alone, watching old movies and drinking wine. For the first time in years, I felt a strange sense of peace. No pretending, no walking on eggshells, no forcing smiles while being subtly insulted. Liam came home on Christmas Day looking like a thundercloud. What the hell, Rebecca? He demanded, storming into the living room. Dollar store perfume? Dog treats for a Chihuahua? My family thinks you've lost your mind. No, Liam. I've finally found it, I replied calmly. I'm not spending another dollar trying to impress people who will never accept me. You humiliated me in front of my entire family. My mother was in tears. Was she? How interesting that she can cry on command whenever it's convenient. This isn't funny. You need to apologize to everyone. I looked at him, really looked at him, and saw a stranger. A man who had allowed his family to mistreat his wife for years. A man who had chosen them over me at every turn. A man who expected me to apologize for a few cheap gifts when they had excluded me from Christmas. No, Liam. I don't need to apologize. I need a divorce. The word divorce hung in the air between us. Liam looked shocked, then angry, then calculating. Fine, he said finally. If that's what you want. But remember the prenup. You won't get anything. I smiled slightly. I remember the prenup very well. The next day, I contacted a divorce attorney. Sarah Johnson was a no-nonsense woman with 20 years of experience dealing with high-conflict divorces. So, let me get this straight, she said after I explained everything. You signed a prenup stating you'd maintain separate bank accounts, and neither party would be eligible for alimony? Yes, that's right. And since then, your husband's business has failed. You've become the primary breadwinner, and he's only working part-time while you support him. Exactly. Sarah smiled. Mrs. Edwards, that prenup was designed to protect your husband's assets when he had them. Now, it's protecting yours. I hadn't thought of it that way. The prenup that was meant to protect Liam from the gold digger his parents thought I was would now protect me from supporting him after the divorce. When Liam was served the divorce papers and realized the implications of the prenup, he panicked. Suddenly, my phone was flooded with messages and calls, not just from him, but from his entire family. Rebecca, please, we need to talk about this, Liam begged in one voicemail. This is just a rough patch. Every marriage has them, Diana insisted in another. You took vows, Rebecca. For richer or poorer, remember. Richard lectured in his message. I didn't respond to any of them. Sarah advised me to save everything but not engage. After a week of ignored messages, the tone changed dramatically. You ungrateful bitch, Liam spat in a late-night voicemail. After everything I've done for you. We always knew you'd abandon him once the money ran out, Diana hissed in her message. I forwarded everything to Sarah, who added it to our growing file. A month after moving out to a small apartment in Newtown, I received a strange call from Liam. The rent is a week late, he said without preamble when I answered. What are you talking about? I paid my new landlord on time. No, the rent for the apartment. Our apartment. You still need to pay your half. I was speechless for a moment. Liam, I don't live there anymore. Why would I pay rent for a place I'm not living in? Because your name is on the lease. You can't just walk away from that responsibility. This was news to me. My name is on the lease? I never signed anything. Your parents handled all of that, remember? He went quiet for a moment. Well, you still have a moral obligation to pay. After hanging up, I received threatening texts from both Richard and Diana, claiming they would sue me for the remainder of the lease term if I didn't pay up. I forwarded these to Sarah, who immediately requested a copy of the lease from their lawyer. What came back was shocking. The lease was solely in Richard and Diana's names. There was no sublease agreement with Liam and me, nothing in writing at all. And the monthly rent stated on the lease was $2,400, but Liam and I had been paying them $2,600 each month. They've been charging you an extra $200 a month, Sarah said, barely containing her outrage. And subleasing is explicitly prohibited in this contract. They could be evicted for this. We notified the actual landlord of the situation, providing proof that Liam and I had been living there while Richard and Diana collected our money and paid the rent. The landlord was furious and served the Edwards with an eviction notice. Diana left me a threatening voicemail that same day. You think you're so clever, getting us evicted? Well, I drive with a baseball bat in my car now, and I'll be keeping an eye out for you around town. Sarah immediately filed for a restraining order based on that threat. She also helped me file a lawsuit to recover the extra $4,800 we had paid over 2 years, $200 per month, plus damages for the fraudulent arrangement. We probably won't get the full amount, Sarah explained. But we can likely settle for the overpayment at minimum. And the restraining order should keep them at bay. The divorce proceedings dragged on for months. Liam refused to accept the terms, insisting that I should still be responsible for half of our debts, mostly credit cards he had run up trying to restart his business. The judge was unsympathetic to his arguments. The prenup was clear. Separate finances meant separate debts. Liam would get no alimony, no share of my savings, and full responsibility for his own financial mess. When the divorce was finally granted, I felt nothing but relief. The lawsuit against Richard and Diana settled out of court. They agreed to repay the extra rent plus $2,000 in legal fees. The first thing I did after moving into my new apartment was adopt an older cat from the shelter, a gorgeous 7-year-old tabby named Oscar. Liam had been severely allergic to cats, so I had given up my dream of having one when we got married. "Just us now, buddy," I told Oscar as he explored his new home. 2 old souls starting over. I changed my last name back to Taylor, got a promotion at work, and slowly started rebuilding my savings. Friends who had drifted away during my marriage, mostly due to Diana's subtle manipulation, came back into my life. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Mark, Vanessa's husband, at a coffee shop in the city. He looked uncomfortable but came over to my table. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry for how everything went down," he said awkwardly. "For what it's worth, I always thought you were good for Liam. Better than he deserved." "Thanks, Mark. How's Coco? Did he ever manage to chew that bone?" He laughed despite himself. "No, but it's now his favorite thing to drag around the house. Drives Vanessa crazy." That small interaction gave me more closure than anything else. It confirmed what I had always suspected. Not everyone in the Edwards family had hated me. Some had just been too afraid to stand up to Diana. A year after the divorce, I received a text from Liam. "I miss you. I made a mistake. Can we talk?" I didn't respond. Some chapters are better left closed. Looking back, those petty Christmas gifts weren't what ended my marriage. They were just the final acknowledgement that it was already over, had been for a long time. Sometimes, the most valuable gift you can give yourself is the courage to walk away. And as for the prenup that was meant to protect Liam from a gold digger, well, it protected me from a family that tried to dig gold for me instead. Life has a funny way of working out sometimes.
What an incredible journey we've just witnessed. Rebecca's story reminds us that sometimes the greatest gift we can give ourselves is the courage to walk away from toxic relationships, even when they're with people we once loved deeply. Throughout this saga, we saw how Rebecca tried everything to win over her in-laws. Expensive gifts, homemade desserts, and endless patience. Yet nothing was ever good enough. From the moment Diana dumped her lovingly made pavlova into the trash, it was clear these people would never accept her, no matter what she did. The pivotal moment came when they excluded her from Christmas and her husband failed to stand by her side. Her petty revenge with those terrible gifts wasn't just about spite. It was her first act of rebellion against years of mistreatment, a declaration that she would no longer tolerate being treated as an outsider in her own marriage. The irony of the prenup is perhaps the most satisfying part of this story. What was meant to protect Liam from a gold digger ended up protecting Rebecca from supporting a man who wouldn't support her. And discovering the rental scam was the final confirmation that this family had been taking advantage of her all along. Rebecca's story teaches us several important lessons. First, when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. Second, marriage should be a partnership where both people choose each other first. And finally, sometimes the things meant to trap us can become the very tools of our liberation. What would you have done in Rebecca's situation? Would you have confronted the in-laws earlier or handled the Christmas exclusion differently? Have you ever had to deal with toxic in-laws or a partner who wouldn't stand up for you? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of sweet justice and personal triumph, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Give this video a thumbs up and turn on notifications so you never miss our newest relationship dramas. We post new stories daily that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Thanks for watching Reddit Bit.